Delitha and Nathan Myers have been in the movie, music, and media ministry for over 25 years. In this podcast today, we'll talk about how to reclaim the TV and movie industry for your family. Stay tuned for the Front Parking Spot podcast. Hello, moms. Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer Bosma, wife, mom, grandma, former teacher for 23 years, and now a Christian children's book author and your podcast host. Are you a faith-based mom trying to live out a Christian life for your family? Do you want to learn more ways that you can have power over your child's spiritual growth? Inside this podcast, you will find tried and true ideas to grow in your faith and be the best wife and mom you can be. So listen in as you're cleaning up, doing the drive, or matching that sock, and be encouraged to know that God has his front parking spot set aside for you. Hello, moms and dads. Thank you so much for being on the Front Parking Spot podcast today. Today, I have a duo, a husband and wife duo. I have Nathan and Delitha Myers, and they have a story. Nathan is an award-winning creator with actor, director, and designer credits, and he was the lead designer from Capernaum Studios and Gardens, and he was featured in seasons 1 through 3 on the global hit The Chosen. And we all know The Chosen, just the best show ever. Then we have Delitha Myers. She's a homeschool mom with a 12-year-old daughter and 3-year-old. You guys have the whole range. And the director of the Fort Worth Actor Studio, and is a creator and producer of the feature film Aria Appleton Shines. And I love that not only are you a set designer for The Chosen, and Delitha, you're also a trained musical theater performer. And I love that you're doing God-honoring kids' films that combat today's culture of confusion, rebellion, and moral drift, not with lectures, but through story, music, and truth. Y'all, welcome so much to the Front Parking Spot podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So tell us a little bit about your ministry. And we were talking earlier about the message that God has for you, for our listeners, both moms and dads today.
Yeah, we are having a lot of fun over the last few years making movies. We've been in the film space and the theater space for over 25 years. And Delitha and I met doing children's theater. And so kids and children's material and things like that. It's interesting because that's just where we met. We were both interested in theater. We were both directing music for a children's theater in Fort Worth, and have kind of come up out of not just the children's theater space and kids stuff. I got my start in ministry right out of high school. Thought I was going to work for the institutional church for a while. I did that. I went through seminary, went to Russia, did mission work in Russia for a couple of years, studied Russian and English, taught English through the Bible. And then when I got back, I kind of got reestablished for about a year and was feeling, because I'm a creative, feeling like the cog of my wheel was not fitting in my particular church heritage. And I just couldn't seem to feel comfortable and find my place. And I think the Lord was leading me out of a lot of my old dogma. And he was also leading me into a place where he could make me more useful. And so kind of got led over into the theater space again. I started as an actor and singer in high school, and I was also a scenic. I was doing scenic painting and scenic design while I was in high school, and then did some of that post-college. When I moved to Fort Worth, picked up this gig directing music with Kids Who Care at the Scott Theater, where I met Delitha.
Yay.
And then that spun off into all sorts of creative endeavors over the last 20 years, ranging from different film production opportunities to Capernaum Studios, which we'll talk about, and then our recent feature film, which Delitha was the creator of that character set and story concept and the original seed screenplay that became the movie that we're promoting today. So
Yeah, I was an actor for a while, and then I had a child.
Right.
Right after I had my baby, I went back to work at this regional theater, and I felt guilty. I felt very torn. And so it was not an enjoyable show experience for me. And that was the last time I performed live, was 12 years ago. And I just kind of drew a line in the sand, and I said, you know what? I'm a mom now, and she is my priority. And so I walked away from the theater for a while. I always say I'll go back when I'm 60 or 70.
Exactly. And one day your kids will be all grown and you
Exactly.
can,
Yeah. So, but So I went back and I just was with my daughter, and then the Lord led us to kind of brainstorm together and create something together, which came out of me watching these shows and movies with my young child and going, I mean, some of it's okay, but there's a lot of fluff. There's a
Mhm.
lot of worldly agenda. They sneak things in to all of these shows. Like there was one movie I watched with her and it was a great movie. It was fine. It was very clean. Then the credits rolled and then they put that worldly agenda in right in the credits and ruined the whole
You're like,
experience, you know?
why? Why
Why?
does
I don't
every
want to
show need this?
yeah, I don't wanna have these thank you, Hollywood, for telling me when I have to have these conversations with my child.
Mhm.
I'm not ready, you know? So, we kind of put our heads together, and the Lord led us to create a kids' movie for
Mm.
kids with keeping God in mind, right?
Love
So, there's actual substance
it.
to this film. There are talking points parents can talk to their kids about that are good things. We have a leaders and parents guide that we wrote that goes along with the film that has scriptures that the family can talk about. Okay, so adoption is in the movie. Let's talk about adoption. Let's look at some scriptures. How do we feel about adoption?
Mhm.
How are we adopted? You know, and then there's also honoring our parents. That's in the film. What? Honoring our parents in media. And so it's because of my daughter that we created this movie that we're out promoting right now. There's a whole group of people that are doing it too. Like we there's lovely things being born about through Christian film and media, and we're really excited about this road that we're on.
And this comes out, was it June 13th?
Actually, that was our original drop date that we
Right.
had selected, and the Lord had other plans because when you're going, we're available currently on Prime Video, which is an Amazon company, and those of you that have a Prime account have access to the movie. You just search Aria Appleton, Aria Appleton, and if you just type in Aria Aria, it'll pop up for you. But yes, the traditionally the publication process with them could take as long as 3 to 6 months. And we were reading blogs going, well, we'd like to launch in mid-June, but we may have to just kind of go with whatever happens through the publication process because you cannot select a release date when you release independently in this way. And we didn't do this because we didn't have distribution offers. We did have distribution offers from several companies. Some were untenable. They just didn't really have the resources to do what we wanted to do. Others were criminal. And so, we couldn't, we felt the Lord slap our hands several times like, no, you're not going over here into this traditional process. In fact, this year, if you look at what's going on in Hollywood, everything is collapsing. There's a major turnover happening. And so we feel like Lord kind of protected us from getting into some weird entangling alliances with people we shouldn't have been involved with. And so, but yes, we launched suddenly at the end of May. We were actually
You're already,
available.
It took
yeah.
less than 2 weeks for us. I mean, it was bathed in prayer, and the
Aw.
Lord answered our prayers.
Yeah, I told her as we were loading up, we're reading blogs and reading what's happening. And one, we are very blessed to get into Amazon because Amazon has closed the doors for Prime Video. No one else can get in the gate unless you already had an account with them. Because independent filmmakers used to be able to just load up an indie film and start to promote it as long as it got through their publication process. Well, they've closed those doors, but thankfully we already had an account with them and we're in the
Have that
door.
in the show notes. We'll have your show so people can
Yeah.
tune in. Because I like one of the talking points that you guys have also written on, and we have a lot of little messages here today. But it like entertainment is discipling our kids, and how I love how what are other steps besides putting like you guys made a movie, so that's how you're reclaiming it for good, but not the moms. They're dealing with their kids turn on the TV, and like we talked about, they're always going to be some kind of little agenda that's
Mhm.
going to be put in there. It seems like every movie. But how do you guys, when you're not making a movie, how would moms reclaim that for good in their own homes?
It is so hard. For me, I have a 3-year-old and a 12-year-old, and my 12-year-old is pretty great now. She's the kind of people pleaser who you say one thing, she course corrects. And so I do not worry about what she's looking at because she knows she's not allowed to look at anything unless she's with me. But
Right.
the 3-year-old, he
Yeah.
has his own agenda.
Mm.
And he knows how to work these devices like he made it. He's such a pro. And so he watches YouTube Kids, and I've gone in and I've selected what he can and cannot watch.
Yeah.
And I've put in there a lot of, lovely Bible stories and Bible songs and that sort of thing so that he gets some substance between watching cars and
Right.
watching people farm, which are the things he likes. And so I'm trying to reclaim that device for God, for him, intermingled with these other things that he likes. And so I can do that because he's 3.
Right.
Now, once you get into the teenage years, I've heard horror stories and I've heard even worse stories about adult children. I'm not looking forward to this really, but I just think we have to train them right in these early years and then stay strong, stay firm, stay on them. Don't just because they're 13, 14, 17 now, let them loose because that is actually kind of the worst time for them to be loose. So you just really need to think through what are our boundaries, what are our rules, and stay consistent. And so for us, we have time. It's like we do homeschool. And so once we're through with homeschool, if we had a good attitude, we tried our hardest, then you can be rewarded with the device. But you know what? If you didn't have a good attitude, you don't get the device all day. And the
Right.
worst part of that is that it's actually the worst for me because then I have to be full on mom. I can't
Right.
just
Right. You can't
myself
empty the
go and
dishwasher and
get
be
on.
like, yeah, you
Yeah.
have to be creative. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important that the parents talk themselves through it, that they're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
be a big girl, be a big boy, and be the parent that these children need. And so that means that the parents have to put down their devices,
Right.
Yeah,
And,
that's the oh, I was going to say that's the bravery factor we were talking about earlier, which is just that parents need to be brave and selfless, do the right thing for their kid.
mhm. Well, and the other thing too is not have a TV in their room.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like we growing up, and my daughter does the same thing. They have one TV, and the one TV is in like the family room where everyone can watch it. And I think it's a good conversation because you do have the spread with a 12-year-old and a 3-year-old. I think it's a good conversation that if you're watching anything and there's going to be a topic that we need to breach, we're going to breach that topic. Just so my child, when you're watching TV, this is a parenting moment because so much stuff is not good. I've been reading recently because I've got little grands and the whole Coco Melon thing,
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah.
and it's so politically correct, but it's actually kind of scary when a parent, well, let's just watch Coco Melon. And then they kind of intertwine all these agendas, and that's scary when mom thinks they're doing something right.
Well, in Cocomelon, we read an article about how the timing of and the colors used really messes with the kids' brainwaves.
Yeah, they've kind of built that for true programming in its worst form, and there are other shows that are doing that too. It's not just them. Anybody that has a vested interest in a long-term future brand, several of our billionaires are doing that. They're investing heavily in animation and kids shows and they're not as interested in an ideological push with those kids as much as they are interested in later selling those kids some product. And so they're baiting them currently, programming them currently for certain characters in certain shows because those characters will later be used to promote certain product. And so they're building future buyers for their companies. And so that is a very real thing. The issue with Cocomelon or other shows that are doing that type of more ideological programming, well, that's a slightly more insidious thing I think we ought to all be paying attention to.
Right. And just when my kids were little, and he's still on, we watched The Donut Man with Rob Evans. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Donut Man with Rob Evans, but it's good, clean fun. And when you watch the episodes now, you can tell it was done, 20 years ago. But it was just all they sing Jesus songs, and a lot of the songs, it's integrity music and integrity kids, a lot of the songs, and it's just sweet. And you're safe with Donut Man, Rob Evans, singing scripture and singing at the barn, at the zoo. And they're at the Fort Worth Zoo. I think y'all are from
Yeah.
around that area a lot. So that's a kind of a cute one. Yeah, but what other messages that you have, like we talked about the rise of tech addiction, how they're doing that with, the kids with Cocomelon, entitlement and rebellion. How can parents push back? What can they do? They want to turn on their TV, kids do want to watch it, but what are some tips you would give the moms and dads listening on how they can reclaim that and push back?
Yeah, I would say remember that everyone out
Yeah.
there is producing 268% more adult content than they are family content. And there's a statistic out there that only 15% that is being made is acceptable for families, and even less than that has a Christian message. So it's very, very chancy. It's very risky to let your child watch something on their own. The likelihood that they're going to watch something inappropriate is great.
Yeah.
The likelihood that they are going to be influenced, not for good, is huge. And so I think parents do need to push back, and they have to reclaim the authority that God gave them, because they are the parent and they have these precious little souls looking to them. Even if their child is 20, they are still under their care.
Yeah.
Their brain is still forming at 20. So no matter what the age of your child is, you have to kind of stand up to them and say, no, these are the rules, because I actually care about you and I care about your future. And look ahead. What do you want your 25-year-old to be into? Or what do you want them to be speaking like? Well, if you want them to be speaking like taking the Lord's name in vain, or saying profanities, or speaking about really inappropriate subjects, okay, well, let them just doom scroll on YouTube or doom scroll on TikTok. Great. The world will have them. But if you want to actually, make godly children who become godly adults, you need to take the time now to be invested in their lives. And sometimes if that child, is just you gave them the tablet and they're just watching so that you can have a moment of peace in your life. Take that moment of peace and then hurry it up and take them outside and do something with them or be to them.
I have to do that a lot. Or the 3-year-old especially will, because we office at home, we work from home, we're homeschooling, we're all here piled on top of each other all the time. And the 3-year-old doesn't see any boundaries, right? They're just like, there's no time boundaries. There's no boundaries room to room. It's just it's a free for all for him. And if he comes in, I have to it'll be, Dad, can you go jump with me he doesn't say jump with me on the trampoline. He says, jump me on the trampoline. And so jump me on the trampoline. And so he'll come pester me if he visits me more than once in making a request. And I say, well, I can't do that right now, buddy. I've got to finish something. And he leaves and doesn't return. That's usually okay. He'll go occupy himself for a minute. If he comes back twice, I put down what I'm doing, and all he needs is 2 to 5 minutes. That's about all he needs. And if I go do that, he loses interest so fast, he's on to something else. But what he gets out of that is that Dad put something down and made him a priority, and we went and we did this together. And so that is not a huge sacrifice for any parent. Now, your older kids might require a little more time in some cases, but I have found that my 12-year-old, she's kind of similar. If I will take that 5 to 10 minutes with her to review what she's writing or drawing, whatever that thing is that she wants to share with me, if I'll sit down with her and really invest in that moment, that might be all she needs that day for the affirmation and the love, that hug, that moment. In fact, I might not see her for 24 hours after that because she got what she needed out of that. And so I think we have to be very aware and awake, and we need to be vigilant about it, because everyone says this, that it goes by fast, right? And those of you that have grown kids, it did go by fast, and you're looking at it going, man, I wish I could have done something more. I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd taken more time. And so if they're tapping you on the shoulder, take the time.
And I would love for us all to get back to the 90s where, we always looked forward to Fridays, right? Because it was TGIF, and we all sat down as a family and watched these family shows on Friday night. And at our house, we had pizza, and it was just lovely. But figure out what your kids' love languages if you can, if they're old enough. And if it's quality time, then let's do Friday night and we're spending time together watching a movie. If it's that they want touch, we'll touch them, rub their back while you're watching that movie. If it's a gift, I bought you a new movie. Here it is. Figure out what that love language is and make it somehow appropriate to that Friday night gathering. And then watch a movie. Do your research, make sure it's appropriate. And then when you're watching it, if something slips in there, then guess what? You get to have a conversation.
And
And
then
don't
Friday
be
night,
afraid.
you're talking about it.
Yeah, don't be afraid of that conversation. It's Friday night talks. Great. So after the movie, we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss.
That's something we do. We do real talk with the kids. If they ask us a very difficult question that's like, whoa, I'm not ready for this question today. We just answer it scientifically, matter of factly, biblically. It's just like, here's the answer. And, if it's something strange, anatomical, sexual, something that's bizarre that they need to know right now, and we just tell them the answer, usually they just go, oh, weird. And they move on, and they don't really process it in the same way. But if we act all weird about it and backpedal and get strange, then they go, why is mom acting so weird? But when we just accept those things and matter of factly deal with them, I think that they handle it a lot better. I do too. But we also have some other things that we do regarding just tools and things. Like we have a no devices at the dinner table rule in our house. We have with like the 3-year-old, he gets limited availability to devices during a day, and we enforce him to go play with toys and play outside and do all the other things that kids need to do. And then I made up an arbitrary rule one day that it was no devices after 6:30 for him. It was like post dinner, no devices after 6:30. And so he doesn't even know what that means, but he does understand, like, if I say, well, he'll be like, why can't I have that? Why can't I have the phone? No devices after 6:30. It's after 6:30. He goes, oh, and he'll move on. Like he's accepted that, like that. Oh, it's the boundary. And we've hit the boundary tonight, so I can't do that. We have a similar thing with Red 40. He has figured out we don't let him eat Red 40. And so in the store, he's 3, but I have a disagreement with him. It's like, it's code red. If he said, well, I want that. No, you can't have that. It's code red, Maxwell. And he'll laugh. And he understands now, like, and we've explained it to him. And now Grammy tries to give him something with Red 40 in it. And he'll be like, Grammy, I can't have that. That has Red 40 in it. And so they'll pick up on these boundaries, and they like boundaries.
Yeah.
And they may not understand it, but they trust you. And so we have those limits around food. We have them around tech. We recommend people having off limits, like a box, where, and if it's a good way to train kids to, are they going to pay attention to you? Are they going to obey you? It's like, well, these items all go in the box, and they don't come out of the box until we give you permission to do so. So
I used to teach voice lessons, and I had this girl at the time who was 11, and she confided in me. She was like, yeah, my mom, she doesn't let me get on my tablet after 9. But you know what? Then she goes to sleep, and I just get on it.
Oh,
So she needs the box.
right. She does need the box.
I'm afraid my son is going to need the box.
No.
My daughter doesn't. It's just, you have to know your kids.
Yeah, you have to know your kids. And I love everything you were saying. It really popped in my head. Number 1, you're available. You are available when your kids need you. And number 2, when you were talking about, like, when you're watching something and something gets snuck in there, chances are if you saw it, they saw it too. Don't be the parent that wants to push it under the rug because you're not really wanting to go there.
mm-hmm.
Just say, hey, did you see that? That was wrong. Let me tell you why. And the other thing that I thought of when you were talking about, when you have these discussions, it doesn't have to be long. Like you said, just address it, because the kids don't want to keep going and going and going, Mom, I get it. Just say that's wrong because of blah, blah, blah. I love that. Well, we're almost out of time right now, but I wanted to have the listeners, I have a question in my head. What do you let your kids watch? I know not all shows are safe, but are there any go-to that you feel are a little bit safe so the moms listening can be like, oh, I can kind of trust that this one will be okay? What are your thoughts on that?
So Angel Studios has a couple of good shows for kids. They need more.
Right?
If they're listening, you need more.
Okay.
But one of the shows on there is Wing Feather Saga. It's based off of the book by Andrew Peterson, and they're phenomenal. They're great. And like the Bible, it's full of parables. It's allegorical. It's really great. So it's not preaching at the kids, They get it. They understand, but it's just entertainment. For the older kids, there's Studio C, which is on on Angel. And it's so funny. I love it.
Studio C is a little bit like Saturday Night Live,
Yeah.
but it's not blue humor. It's clean comedy. It's done by BYU. Does it? It's one of their shows that they created, and so it's kind of got that family values backdrop, and it's a very funny show.
So funny. He just was an actor on a YouTube show, and it's a really good, clean, family-friendly YouTube. What's it called?
Yeah, it's Shiloh and Bros on YouTube. If you guys know those guys, they're making clean family comedy and.
And for my 3-year-old who really doesn't care what he's watching on YouTube, as long as he gets to watch YouTube,
Right. YouTube.
it's really good for him. I mean, it's fluffy. It's not talking about godly principles, but it's clean.
Good. And so we're almost out of time, but tell our listeners, how can they find you? And we'll have all this written up in the show notes too, but just tell them a little bit, brief commercial.
So the go-to is ariaappleton.com, ARIA, Apple. TON.com. And in there, it'll link you out to Prime Video. We have an album because it's a musical comedy. And so there's 25 tracks on the album. It'll link you out there, takes you to iTunes, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. And then we have, we're on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook. Please find us. We post at least 3 to 4 times, just fun content from the movie. But just go to ariaappleton.com and it'll take you there.
Awesome. Well, it was such a pleasure having you guys today. Oh, I take back your TV and take back the entertainment, and so many great messages, especially because this is going to come out during when the kids are home, and let's get that back. And I love the Friday night ideas, bringing that back to where it needs to be. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, mamas, thank you so much for joining in. I know you are super busy doing all the things that can consume your day, but you took a couple of minutes to learn how God wants to build you up in your faith, family, and life, and He wants to applaud you for this. Please subscribe and review my show. This helps other moms tune in as well. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram at Front Parking Spot, on Facebook at Front Parking Spot Mom Community, or my website at jenniferbosma.com. Have an Ephesians 3:20 type of day, mamas, and be encouraged as you go for the front parking spot in your life today. God bless.